For a long time, there was a story that limited series sold poorly, and that comic companies would even go as far as to hide the fact that a comic was a limited series because if they printed LS on it, it would actually hamper the sales. It would do worse. And that was one of the reasons why you had these kind of stealth limited series that were going on. That's not completely true on any front. So let me explain kind of why. Hey everybody, this is Perch. The topic of the limited series is an interesting one because it's kind of one of those things that is an urban legend or a kind of a story that got passed around that doesn't necessarily bear any actual truth to it. And that's that comic publishers, mainly Marvel and DC, the big guys, that they would deliberately not label a comic a limited series because it would do poorly in the market. Now, where this got its origins from are some high profile people. I believe Jim Shooter actually made comments to this effect much later after he was gone from Marvel. And he had made some comments about how limited series didn't sell well and that if they put the limited series label on something, people would order less of it and so on. But those comments were not really about the limited series, it was more a reflection of what was going on at the newsstand at the time. Now, the newsstand as a distribution platform was putting comics out, and what they liked was reliability. And what I mean by that is the people who are ordering for the newsstand did not really pay much attention to the comics they were ordering. They would order Wonder Woman. Maybe if the publisher would have to actually work really hard to say, hey, John Byrne is on Wonder Woman, for example, and he's a notable artist. So, we recommend you order more of these, or you should. It didn't work that way. It's not like the publisher called up, like, Safeway and said, hey, you need to order more of Wonder Woman because of John Byrne. Because Safeway would go, wait, who's John Byrne? And in some cases would say, who's Wonder Woman? So it wouldn't resonate with them. So they had to basically put their best foot forward. The idea of a limited series was always somewhat of a tough sell to the newsstand because it was a comic that didn't have a long longevity. It's something that was going to come in and leave. So you had to package that in such a way that the Safeways and the grocery stores and the gas stations and other things could consume it. It's much easier to say, hey, we carry Superman, and we don't really worry about Superman. We don't, remember they weren't doing relaunches of comics back then. They weren't doing any of this stuff, and part of why is they wanted to make it dead simple for the newsstand that really didn't want to have to think about all this stuff. So it became, we carry Batman, we carry Spider-Man, we carry Superman. In many cases, and there's some famous, Marv Wolfman has made this comment before, where these big box stores would be surprised at times that there were multiple copies of Spider-Man. It's like there's a spectacular Spider-Man and a web of Spider-Man and an amazing Spider-Man. I thought I was ordering Spider-Man. Where's the Spider-Man book? And it's just kind of a funny way if you think about it. Think about somebody who's not into comics, distributing comics. But anyway, that to me at least seems to be the origin of some of these. The limited series do not sell well. The other factor there is that some other people, in this case, Joe Quesada made comments about this very, very early on in his Marvel career, and there have been others who have said the same, which is we use the limited series to try things out. For lack of a better word, we're not sure if this comic will go or will sell, so we put out this limited series as a way to test the market to see if there's an audience here. And if you're putting out something that you're testing the market for, by its definition, it's probably going to sell less. So if it exceeds expectations, great, it might get a full order. If it doesn't, it stays limited series. But when people say limited series don't sell as well, yeah, kind of by the fact that they are a limited series, that makes sense. But at the same time, certainly in the last 20 years or so, we've seen that Marvel, at least, and DC too, that their highest selling comics during the period have by and large been limited series. And you may say, what? Wait, what? What are you talking about? I'm talking about events. Something like AVX or Secret Invasion or Civil War, those are limited series. Yes, they are event books, but they are a number 1 of 7 or number 2 of 8 or whatever it happens to be. Those were all limited series books. Yes, they were event books, but those were limited series books. And if you understand that as part of the definition, what you come to realize is that actually the bulk, certainly of Marvel's revenue, came from limited series books. And I think the same thing can often be said for DC as well. Last Night on Earth sold very, very well. Curse of the White Knight and Batman White Knight sold amazingly well. Those were limited series. Those were finite books. And maybe that requires that you have to expand your definition a little bit about what a limited series is. But, by its definition, a limited series is a book that comes out announced as a finite run and not an ongoing series with no clear end in sight. And if you use that definition, then limited series sell quite well. From those comments from Wolfman and Shooter and Quesada and others along the years, there's been many people who have touched on this topic in various ways. The rumor, the theory, the idea took hold that Marvel was deliberately not intending to, publish many books, and therefore they were putting these things out as kind of stealth limited series, like Iceman. When it came out, was intended always to be a limited series, but they were kind of trying to trick or deceive the readers into thinking it was ongoing, and and it was all kind of a plot. Well, I don't think that theory holds any water at all. It's a very popular one online. It's a popular one with YouTubers. But if you think it through to its conclusion, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Marvel knows full well that event books and specialized books do great. And they also know that if they, put a kind of a special team on something, if they really believe in the book, then they might label something as a limited series. So if we believe that Marvel thought that Cena Grace and Iceman was going to be huge, amazing, they would label it as such. They would label it as a special event series or a limited series or a look into the life of Iceman or what have you, and they would just go for it. The fact that they called it an ongoing, they didn't say anything about that, indicated they actually did believe that book was going to go somewhere. Of course, it didn't, and I think any observer, including the shops, knew that it wouldn't. I mean, the funny part about Iceman is that there's been a lot of angst around that title and kind of the people involved and what's Marvel doing with all this and so on. But in reality, it feels like they're thinking way too hard for a lot of this stuff. I mean, anyone who looked at Iceman, saw Iceman, knew that Iceman as a title was not going to do gangbusters. Everybody, Iceman as a character, long before he was outed as gay or Cena Grace was involved or any of this kind of stuff. Everybody knew that Iceman was not that wasn't going to be a massive seller of a book. Why did they do it? Well, I mean, Marvel believed they had a story to tell. They believed they had a market that they could tap, and they believed they could capitalize on things. And there was a pitch that some editor liked, and they were able to get it done for cheap. And there you go. It was that's the origin of Iceman. But I don't subscribe to the idea that Iceman as a book was always intended to be a limited series. And they wanted to kind of pull the wool over the reader's eyes and trick them into thinking it was an ongoing when really they were planning to cancel it after a few issues. And this was all kind of a money-making scheme because I don't understand the money part. Here's the people who have voiced those theories never fully explain the cash part of that equation. So do we believe that Marvel thinks that all ongoing series make the most money? Well, clearly they do not, as you can as evidenced by all their sales. I mean, they've got plenty of. I mean, Marvel may be delusional in certain areas, but they're certainly they can read numbers, and so the idea that Marvel would be so crazy as to think that calling something an ongoing was going to give a special sales bump to a book that they know will get canceled immediately. There's too many ifs in that equation. There's too many weird gaps of logic. Whereas the simplest answer is the easier one, which is, people believe they could get Iceman done on the cheap. They believe that they could put this book out and hopefully it would take off. They probably didn't have a big emotional connection to whether it took off or not. That's a whole different topic for a whole different video. But they threw something out and it didn't sell very well and it got canceled. And the end. The kind of the three-dimensional chess around, did they know it was going to fail going in and deliberately tried to trick people by calling it ongoing? No, I mean if they knew it was going to fail going in, then odds are they would call it a special event series, a special book, and just go that direction in order to try and maximize the sales they could out of it. Or maybe I'm the deluded one, and everybody is dumb in this equation. I mean, anything is possible. But regardless of all that, I just want to go into a little bit of the history of the limited series, how it came about, the fact that it actually does not have this stigma of being terrible for sales, that there are other factors involved, and a little bit of where the whole origins of that theory kind of came into being. So hope that was helpful. Hope you got some info out of that. Let me know your thoughts on limited series. Do you believe that they're inherently bad if they list as a limited series? You're like, oh nope, I don't want that. I know it's going to suck. Is that how you view it? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and ask me questions. I'm always happy to have topics. This one is a viewer requested topic. So thanks for putting that in there. And most importantly, thanks for listening.